The moment I saw her sitting there, casually munching on what could only be described as crystallized poison, I knew my intelligence reports were wrong. Catastrophically wrong. My name is Vex'than, Senior Diplomatic Enforcer for the Galactic Council of Peaceful Species, and I had never encountered anything quite like this creature. The human female sat cross-legged on the observation deck of Starbase Meridian, her feet dangling over the edge like she was enjoying a picnic instead of staring into the vacuum of space that would kill most beings in less than 3 seconds. "Excuse me," I said, approaching with what I hoped was appropriate caution. My translator implant buzzed softly, converting my words into her primitive language. "You appear to be consuming Zephyrian crystal candy. That substance is classified as a Class 7 toxin and is lethal to 98.7% of known species." She looked up at me with those unsettling blue eyes, took another bite of the glowing purple confection, and smiled, actually smiled, as if I had just told her the weather forecast. "Oh, this stuff," she said, holding up the candy like it was nothing more dangerous than a fruit. "Yeah, I bought it from the vending machine down the hall. Pretty tasty, actually. Reminds me of those sour gummies we had back on Earth." She paused, studying my expression. "You okay there, buddy? You look like you've seen a ghost." I felt my secondary heart skip a beat. This was Maya Chen, according to her identification records, though she had introduced herself simply as Maya when she boarded the station 3 days ago. 24 years old, originally from a place called Australia on the notorious Deathworld known as Earth. The file described her occupation as freelance problem solver, which was bureaucratic speak for mercenary. What the file had failed to mention was that she was completely, utterly, and perhaps dangerously insane. "Miss Chen, I began, consulting my data pad with trembling claws. "You do realize that Zephyrian crystal candy contains enough neurotoxins to drop a Gorvanian megabull, don't you? The recommended dosage for scientific study is 0.001 grams. You have consumed approximately 40 grams in the past 10 minutes. Maya shrugged, a gesture that somehow managed to convey both indifference and mild amusement. "Huh. Well, that explains the tingly feeling." She took another bite, larger this time, as if to prove a point. "Back home, we call this Tuesday." I stared at her. Actually stared. In my 347 years of diplomatic service, spanning 12 different galaxies and 49 distinct species, I had never encountered such casual disregard for basic survival instincts. "Miss Chen," I tried again, my voice climbing higher, despite my best efforts to remain professional. "I must insist that you cease consumption immediately and report to the medical bay for emergency detoxification procedures." She laughed, not a polite chuckle or a nervous giggle, but a full, genuine laugh that echoed through the observation deck and somehow managed to make me feel like the joke was on me. "You know what's funny?" she said, finishing the last of the candy and dusting off her hands. "Everyone keeps telling me how dangerous things are around here. The security guard warned me about the artificial gravity fluctuations. The bartender refused to serve me Regelian moonshine because it might melt my internal organs. And now you're worried about candy." She stood up, and I instinctively took a step back. Maya was not particularly tall by human standards, barely reaching my shoulder, but there was something in the way she moved that set off every predator detection system evolution had gifted my species. "The thing is, Anne," she continued, walking toward me with that same casual confidence, "where I come from, we have spiders the size of dinner plates, snakes that can kill you with a single bite, jellyfish that cause pain so intense you'll beg for death, sharks, crocodiles, drop bears, and plants that can give you burns just by touching them. Oh, and let's not forget the occasional cyclone, bushfire, or drought that can wipe out entire cities." I found myself backing away, though I wasn't entirely sure why. That sounds terrible." "Terrible?" Maya's grin widened, showing teeth that seemed far too sharp for a supposedly omnivorous species. "That's just home. And you know what the best part is? We humans don't just survive all that, we thrive on it. We turned those death machines into pets, tourist attractions, and weekend hobbies. My datapad chimed softly, and I glanced down to see an incoming priority message. My blood ran cold as I read the contents. "Miss Chen," I said, my voice suddenly much more serious. "I'm afraid I have some urgent news. There's been a development." She tilted her head, and for a moment, I caught a glimpse of something sharp and calculating behind those deceptively innocent eyes. What kind of development? "The Thrakari battle fleet has just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of this system. 18 heavy cruisers, 47 destroyers, and a command dreadnought. They're demanding the immediate surrender of all human personnel on this station." I expected shock, fear, maybe even panic. What I got was a slow, deliberate nod, as if she had been expecting this news. "The Thrakari," she said thoughtfully. "Those are the big lizard guys with the superiority complex, right? The ones who think they're the master race of the galaxy?" "Among other things, yes. They've been expanding their territory aggressively for the past 50 years. Human space is apparently next on their list of conquests." I paused, studying her reaction. "Miss Chen, you need to understand the gravity of this situation. The Thrakari don't take prisoners. They don't negotiate. When they say surrender, they mean come quietly so they can execute you efficiently." Maya was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the stars. When she finally spoke, her voice had changed. Gone was the casual, almost playful tone. What remained was something colder, sharper, and infinitely more dangerous. "How long until they reach the station?" "Approximately 4 hours at their current approach speed." "And the station's defenses?" I consulted my datapad again, though I already knew the answer. "Minimal. Meridian is a diplomatic and trading post, not a military installation. We have basic shields and a handful of point defense systems, but nothing that could stop a fleet of that size." "What about evacuation?" "In progress. But there simply isn't enough time. The civilian transport ships can carry perhaps 30% of the station's population before the Thrakari arrive." Maya nodded again, that same calculating look in her eyes. "And I'm guessing the Galactic Council doesn't have any battle fleets in the area?" "The nearest Council military asset is 6 days away at maximum hyperspace velocity." "Right." She turned away from the viewport and walked toward the exit. "Well, I guess that settles it then." I hurried to catch up with her, my diplomatic training finally kicking in. "Miss Chen, wait. I understand this must be terrifying, but we have evacuation protocols. I can ensure you get a place on one of the first transport ships." She stopped walking and turned to look at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Terrifying? You think I'm terrified?" "Well, yes. You're about to be attacked by one of the most ruthless military forces in the galaxy. Fear would be a perfectly rational response." Maya stared at me for a moment, then burst into laughter again. But this time, there was something different about it, something that made my survival instincts scream warnings I didn't understand. "Oh, Vex," she said, using the shortened version of my name with casual familiarity. "You still don't get it, do you?" "Get what?" "I'm not trapped on this station with the Thrakari." Her smile was sharp enough to cut steel. "They're trapped in this system with me." Before I could ask what she meant, my datapad chimed again. Emergency priority this time. The message was brief but alarming. "Human female has access station armory. Security override codes unknown. Please advise." I looked up from the screen to find Maya already halfway down the corridor, moving with purpose and deadly grace. "Miss Chen, what are you doing?" "My job," she called back without slowing down. "I'm a problem solver, remember? And it looks like this station has a problem." I ran after her, my longer legs finally giving me an advantage. "You can't seriously be thinking of fighting an entire battle fleet by yourself." "Why not?" "It's not like it's the first time." That stopped me cold. "The first time?" Maya paused at a junction in the corridor, consulting a wall display for directions. Let's see. There was the incident with the Corvin raiders last year. 12 ships thought they could raid a human colony. That didn't go so well for them. Then there was the thing with the Zeltron slavers, 43 vessels. Apparently didn't realize that humans don't actually stay enslaved very long. She found what she was looking for and turned left, continuing her march through the station. Oh, and there was that business with the hegemony dreadnought that tried to blockade New Sydney. Big ship, lots of guns, very impressive right up until it wasn't. You're talking about the broken chain incident, I said, suddenly recognizing the references. The destruction of Slaver Fleet 7. The mysterious explosion of the HSS Dominator. My voice dropped to a whisper. That was you. That was you. Me and a few friends. Though to be fair, most of the credit for the Dominator goes to my buddy Jake. I just provided the distraction while he placed the charges. We reached the armory, where I found the security door hanging open and several very confused-looking guards standing around like decorative plants. Maya was already inside, examining various weapons with the casual interest of someone browsing a gift shop. "Miss Chen," I said, following her into the armory despite my better judgment, "those incidents you mentioned resulted in the complete destruction of multiple enemy fleets. The official reports classified them as unexplained phenomena or equipment failures. Well, you can't exactly put a small group of humans got creative in an official military report. Makes everyone else look bad." She hefted what appeared to be a Kelverin plasma rifle, tested its weight, then set it aside. Too bulky. I need something with better mobility. The Thrakari fleet has over 60 ships. You're talking about taking on an entire armada with whatever weapons you can carry. Maya paused in her weapon selection to give me a look that was part pity, part amusement. "Vex, buddy, you're thinking like a civilized being. That's your problem." "I beg your pardon? You're assuming this is going to be a fair fight. Ship to ship, weapon to weapon, may the best fleet win." She picked up a sleek-looking energy pistol and checked its charge level. "But here's the thing about humans. We don't do fair fights. We do fights we can win." "I don't understand." "Of course you don't. You've spent your whole life in a galaxy where warfare is conducted according to rules, honor codes, engagement protocols, proper declaration procedures. It's very civilized." She selected several more weapons and began attaching them to a tactical harness she had found. "Humans threw that playbook out the window about 5 minutes after we figured out how to make sharp sticks." I watched in growing alarm as she continued arming herself. "What exactly are you planning to do?" "I'm going to solve this station's Thrakari problem." She finished with the weapons and moved on to examining various pieces of equipment. "And I'm going to do it the way humans have been solving problems since we first climbed down from the trees and decided we didn't like being eaten by predators." "Which is?" Maya looked up from a case of explosive charges and smiled that terrifying smile again. "I'm going to cheat." Before I could ask for clarification, the station's communication system crackled to life. A deep, growling voice filled the armory, speaking in the harsh tongue of the Thrakari language before my translator converted it to standard Galactic. "Attention, primitive mammals of Starbase Meridian. This is War Commander Grex'thar of the Thrakari Supremacy Fleet. You have 30 minutes to surrender all human personnel for immediate execution. Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of your pathetic station and everyone aboard it. This, miss, is the only warning you will receive." The message ended, leaving the armory in silence except for the soft hum of the station's life support systems. 30 minutes, I said weakly. "Miss Chen, please, you have to listen to reason." Reason? Maya had found what she was looking for. A compact demolition kit designed for asteroid mining. Reason says that 60-plus warships should be able to destroy one trading station without breaking a sweat. Reason says that one human female with a handful of weapons shouldn't be able to do anything about it. She stood up, fully armed and equipped, looking like some ancient goddess of war, despite her casual clothing and friendly demeanor. But here's what reason doesn't account for. Humans don't fight the war the enemy expects. We fight the war the enemy can't handle. And what war is that? Maya's smile was bright and cheerful, and absolutely terrifying, the kind where we break their spine mid-sentence. As if summoned by her words, my datapad chimed once more. This time the message was from station security. Human female has accessed maintenance tunnels. Last seen heading toward docking bay 7. Advise immediate lockdown. But Maya was already gone, vanishing into the station's maintenance access like a ghost made of violence and bad intentions. I stood alone in the ransacked armory, surrounded by empty weapon cases and the growing certainty that the Thrakari had no idea what they were about to encounter. 30 minutes until surrender deadline, 18 heavy cruisers, 47 destroyers, and a command dreadnought approaching fast, one human female with a demolition kit, and what appeared to be a complete disregard for basic mathematics. I found myself wondering which side I should be more worried about. 27 minutes later, I was standing in the station's command center, watching the most bizarre military engagement of my considerable career unfold on the tactical displays. What had started as a routine surrender demand was rapidly becoming something that would be studied in military academies for generations to come, assuming anyone survived to tell the story. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Zara Voss, the station's chief communications officer, "the Thrakari fleet has reached optimal firing position. Or Commander Grex'thar is demanding to speak with station leadership immediately." Commander Helena Brass, a veteran human officer who ran Meridian Station, looked remarkably calm for someone facing imminent annihilation. "Put him through, Lieutenant. Let's see what our scaly friends have to say." The main screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of War Commander Grex'thar. 8 feet tall, covered in dark green scales, with eyes like molten gold and teeth designed for tearing flesh, he was the very image of Thrakari military superiority. His command bridge behind him buzzed with activity as dozens of crew members prepared for what they clearly expected to be a very short battle. "Mammals," Grex'thar began, his voice dripping with contempt, "your 30 minutes have expired. Prepare to witness the might of the Thrakari supremacy as we reduce your pathetic station to cosmic dust." Commander Brass stepped forward, her expression neutral. "War Commander, this is a diplomatic station operating under Galactic Council protection. Your attack would constitute a violation of 17 separate peace treaties." Grex'thar's laugh was like the sound of grinding metal. "Treaties are for equals, human. You are insects. Insects do not negotiate with their exterminators." That was when Maya's voice cut through the comm channel, clear and conversational, as if she were discussing lunch plans. "Hey there, ugly. Is this the part where you make more threats, or can we skip to the bit where I ruin your entire day?" The command center fell silent. Every being present, from the most experienced officers to the maintenance staff, stared at the communication console in stunned disbelief. Someone had just interrupted a Thrakari war commander mid-speech to call him ugly. Grex'thar's golden eyes narrowed to slits. "Who dares address me in such a manner?" "Maya Chen, freelance problem solver and today's designated Thrakari exterminator. I'm currently standing in your flagship's engine room, by the way. Nice ship. Shame about what's going to happen to it." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heart's beating. On the screen, I watched as Grex'thar turned to his tactical officer, his movements sharp with barely controlled rage. "Scan for intruders. All decks." "Now, sir," came the nervous response. "Sensors show no unauthorized personnel aboard any vessel in the fleet." "Then how is this primitive creature claiming to be on my ship?" Maya's voice came through the speakers again, accompanied by what sounded suspiciously like metal being cut. "Oh, that's easy. Your sensors are looking for life forms that match known biological signatures. But here's the fun part about human military stealth tech. We don't just hide from your sensors. We make your sensors lie to you." I felt my secondary stomach drop. Human stealth technology was largely theoretical, at least according to all official sources. Apparently, the humans had neglected to share certain technical developments with the rest of the galaxy. Impossible, Grex'thar snarled. No single being could infiltrate a Thrakari dreadnought. You're right. It would be impossible for most species. The sound of cutting continued in the background. But see, I'm not most species. I'm Australian. We have a saying back home, if it's not trying to kill you, you're not trying hard enough. Commander Brass stepped closer to the communication panel. Maya, what exactly are you doing over there? Oh, just a little creative engineering. See, the thing about really big warships is they have really big engines. And really big engines tend to go boom in really spectacular ways when you introduce certain chemical compounds in just the right quantities. The tactical display began showing anomalous readings from the Thrakari flagship, energy fluctuations, temperature spikes, and what the computer helpfully labeled as unknown chemical reactions in the engineering sections. Grex'thar had gone very still, the kind of stillness that predators exhibit just before they strike. Human female, you will cease whatever sabotage you are attempting immediately, or I will order the destruction of your station. Yeah, about that. Maya's tone remained cheerfully conversational. You might want to check with your other ships before you start making threats. The war commander turned to his communications officer. Status report from all vessels. Now, what followed was a cascade of increasingly frantic reports. The heavy cruiser Iron Fang reported massive systems failures in their weapon arrays. The destroyer squadron leader announced that their navigation computers had somehow been reprogrammed to plot courses directly into the nearest star. 3 more destroyers were experiencing what their engineers described as impossible mechanical failures in their reactor cores. This is not possible, Grex'thar roared. You are one being. You cannot be on 67 ships simultaneously. You're absolutely right. I can't. The sound of cutting stopped, replaced by what sounded like Maya assembling something with practiced efficiency. But I'm not alone. You see, when you transmitted your surrender demand 30 minutes ago, you made a critical error. What error? You used an open channel, which means every human within 50 light years heard you threaten to execute prisoners of war. And humans, well, we take that sort of thing personally. Commander Brass was staring at the tactical display in growing amazement. Maya, how many of you are there? Officially? Just me. Unofficially, let's just say that humans have been using this trade route for quite some time now, and we've always believed in having contingency plans. Her voice took on a harder edge. Also, threatening to murder civilians really gets our attention. The tactical display was now showing chaos throughout the Thrakari fleet. Ships were reporting system failures, unexplained explosions, and, in at least 2 cases, complete loss of life support. The orderly battle formation was dissolving as individual vessels struggled to deal with sabotage efforts that seemed to be coordinated with impossible precision. This ends now, Grex'thar declared, raising his hand toward what I assumed was a weapon control. I will destroy your station and everything in this system before I allow this humiliation to continue. That was when Maya spoke again, and for the first time, her voice carried real menace. I wouldn't do that if I were you. And why not, human pest? Because the charges I just finished placing in your reactor core are linked to my biometric readings. If my heart stops beating, they detonate automatically. And trust me, you really don't want to find out what happens when an antimatter containment field gets breached from the inside. The blood drained from Grex'thar's scaled face. You would destroy yourself just to stop us? Maya's laughter echoed through the command center, and it was the sound of someone who genuinely found the situation amusing. Oh, sweetie, you still don't get it. Humans don't just threaten mutual destruction, we guarantee it. It's kind of our thing. You are bluffing. Am I? Tell you what, let's find out. Go ahead and fire on the station. I'm sure your crew will really appreciate being vaporized along with half this solar system. The silence stretched on for nearly a full minute. On the screen, I could see Grex'thar's tactical officers frantically running calculations, their expressions growing more alarmed by the second. Whatever they were finding in their computers was clearly not encouraging news. Finally, the war commander spoke again, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. "What do you want, human?" "What do I want?" "That's simple. I want you to turn your pretty little fleet around and leave this system. I want you to broadcast a message to the entire Thrakari military explaining that human space is officially off limits, and I want you to do it in the next 5 minutes. Before I get bored and decide to redecorate your ship's interior with reactor plasma. The Thrakari supremacy does not negotiate with lesser species. The Thrakari supremacy is about to become the Thrakari extinction event if you don't start being more reasonable." And Maya's voice hardened to steel. "You have 4 minutes and 30 seconds. What happened next would become known throughout the galaxy as the shortest war in recorded history. War Commander Grex'thar, faced with the choice between retreat and annihilation, chose the option that would allow him to live long enough to explain his decision to his superiors. The Thrakari fleet began to withdraw, but not before broadcasting the message Maya had demanded. Throughout Thrakari space, military commanders received orders to avoid human territory at all costs, along with detailed tactical reports describing the unprecedented defensive capabilities of human settlements. As the last Thrakari vessel disappeared into hyperspace, Maya's voice came through the speakers one final time. "Well, that was fun. Vex, you still there?" I stepped forward, my legs feeling somewhat unsteady. "Yes, Miss Chen. I'm here." "Great. Could you have someone pick me up from docking bay 12? I need to catch a transport to the Centauri system. Got another job lined up, and apparently word is spreading that humans are good at solving certain types of problems." Commander Brass shook her head in amazement. "Maya, how did you coordinate with other humans throughout the sector without any of our communication equipment?" "Oh, that's easy. We didn't coordinate anything. Every human ship within range just did what humans do when someone threatens our people. We improvised, adapted, and made the other guy regret starting the fight." As I made my way to docking bay 12 to collect the most dangerous individual I had ever encountered, I found myself reflecting on the events of the day. The Thrakari had approached this system expecting to face a defenseless trading station and a handful of primitive mammals. Instead, they had encountered something their entire military philosophy was unprepared for: humans being human. I found Maya sitting on a cargo container in the docking bay, looking exactly as calm and cheerful as she had when I first met her. The only sign of her recent activities was a small smudge of grease on her cheek and what appeared to be a Thrakari military communicator clipped to her belt. "Souvenir?" I asked, nodding toward the device. "Something like that. Figured it might come in handy if any of their friends decide to try something similar." She hopped down from the container and dusted off her hands. "So, Vex, what did you think of your first human military operation?" I considered my words carefully. "Miss Chen, I have spent my entire career studying military tactics and diplomatic strategies. I have read extensively about human history and warfare. But until today, I don't think I truly understood what makes your species so formidable." "Oh? And what's that?" "Most species fight wars to win territory, resources, or dominance. Humans fight wars to end them." I paused, looking at this small, unassuming female who had just defeated an entire battle fleet with what amounted to creative vandalism. "You don't seek victory. You seek conclusion." Maya smiled, the same bright, cheerful expression that had so unnerved me earlier. "That's probably the nicest thing anyone's ever said about human military doctrine. Most people just call us crazy." "Perhaps," I said thoughtfully. "Those two things are not mutually exclusive." As Maya's transport arrived and she prepared to leave for her next assignment, I realized that my intelligence reports would need significant revision. The section on human military capabilities, in particular, would require an entirely new classification system. After all, how do you categorize a species that treats impossible odds as a personal challenge, regards mutual destruction as an acceptable negotiating tactic, and somehow manages to be both terrifyingly effective and genuinely pleasant company? The answer, I decided, was simple. You classify them as human, and you make very sure they're on your side. Standing in the docking bay, watching Maya's transport disappear into the starfield, I found myself smiling. The galaxy had just become a much more interesting place to live in, and for the Thrakari, it had become a much more dangerous one. Somewhere in the distance, I could swear I heard the sound of 67 warships very carefully plotting courses away from human space, their crews no doubt wondering how a single female from a Deathworld had just convinced their entire fleet to run away without firing a shot. The answer, as I was learning, was elegantly simple. She had done it the human way. She had cheated, she had improvised, and when the moment was right, she had broken their spine mid-sentence, just like she promised.